thank you so much for joining me today here in Montana. I have my little dog here, which by the way, if you're ever considering getting a dog, I highly recommend this kind. He's super sweet. But anyways, he may pop out here and there. But I am going to talk about 10 travel tips that you should know before you go. So let's get started. Tip number 1, be sure you have the necessary documents and travel immunizations. Now, if you're not traveling international, you probably just thought, Janet, this doesn't apply to me. But you would be wrong. Starting in 2018, all U.S. driver's licenses will need to be Real ID compliant. Now, if you don't know what that means or if yours complies, I put a link on my blog site where you can go to the government site. It will give you all the nitty-gritty details. But basically, 5 states have yet to comply, and unfortunately, mine is one of them. Now, if you are traveling international, you probably need a passport, and you probably already know that. But did you know that some destinations require your passport to be good for 6 months? 6 months after you return to the States. So double check your destination and make sure yours complies. Visas and immunizations you may or may not need, but if you do need them, start early. Some immunizations can take up to 3 months to complete. After that, you're going to want to research if you need any other paperwork. When we went to South Africa, we needed to bring our daughter's birth certificates along with their passports. And if I had wanted to take them without my husband, I would have needed a letter from him granting permission, signed and notarized, and vice versa if he wanted to take them without me. And then you're going to want to double check travel alerts and warnings for your destination. Don't get all freaked out about these. It's probably not good where you live if you check that out either. But do just be wise, check them out, and know before you go. All right, moving on. Tip number 2, expect something to go wrong. Now this sounds negative, but I'm really a positive person. It's just that history has shown me something goes wrong every time. And I, for one, respond better, and I'm a whole lot kinder if I prepare for it mentally. If you're making these plans and you're thinking, I'm spending thousands of dollars on this trip, it better be perfect, you're gonna be disappointed, you're gonna be frustrated. And it makes sense. People are tired, they're hungry, you're making 1,000,001 decisions you don't normally make, and everything's new. So just give extra grace and be prepared that something will happen. When we arrived in Paris, we were going up the escalator with our luggage, and this guy in front of me just stopped. He wouldn't move. We all started piling up. Eventually, I had to push him because there was nowhere to go. He started circling us and our bags and grabbing at our stuff. It was a very unsettling welcome into Paris, and not something we could have planned for. After a day of sightseeing, I looked at the metro name. Well, the first word in the metro name, and I said, this is the one we need, hop on. Well, after a little bit, we realized we were going the wrong direction, out of town, late at night, with limited train service back. And very few people who wanted to speak English and help us out. That was all my fault. So I was thankful that everybody else just gave grace and didn't start yelling at me, because I probably would have burst into tears. So plan for it, and it's going to go better when it does happen. All right, tip number 3, research weather and special events before you go. Now this one sounds like a no-brainer, but when I say research weather, also know what that means. When I went to California in February, I looked at the weather. It said high 50s, low 60s, and cloudy, and I'm a Montana girl, so I was like, this is a heat wave. I'm not bringing my coat. I don't need it. And I wished I had my coat. It was like misty and rainy, and the wind from the ocean was cold, and every day I just wanted to get back and take a hot bath. So know what it means when you read it. And then special events, there may be something you really don't want to miss, but if you're not interested in an event and it's going on, it's going to bring extra crowds, higher costs, and make it more difficult for you to see what you really want to see. So just research that before you go and avoid those events if you have no interest in them. All right, tip number 4. This is my personal favorite. Try to find at least one out-of-the-way place at your destination. You can do this by watching videos before you go. I like to use Pinterest and just put in the name of my destination and scroll through photos until I find something that catches my eye. Or you could just be spontaneous when you get there and go wherever you feel like it. But try to get away from the touristy spots. It will help you get a better feel for the culture, the locals, and it will be a good experience. It doesn't always work out. You may have seen photos of the Amsterdam street art. That is no longer there. We went on a hunt for it, but we did find the remnants of it, and an amazing restaurant and a newfound love for Stamppot and profiteroles. So it wasn't all a loss. And in Venice, we did find the bookstore, the Acqua Alta bookstore, which is super fun. So just find something that will make your trip stand out from the rest. Tip number 5. When you arrive at your destination, take a moment to stop by the airport information desk and or your hotel concierge. Now, if you're like me, you're going to be tempted to skip this step and just get to where you're going, but don't do it. They have saved us hours of time. In Amsterdam, we were able to buy our tickets there for the Anne Frank house and save 2 hours waiting in that queue. In Denver, when we arrived at Union Station, the man there saved us time by telling us not to bother with the Mint, that tickets were all sold out for the day. He recommended the Federal Money Museum instead. So take the time. They also usually have useful maps and transportation information, and it will be worth the few minutes that you spend. Tip number 6, know your travel personality. Now, when I say personality, I just mean, are you the type of person that has a checklist of items you have to see? You don't even care how much time you spend there, you just want to check them off? Or are you the kind of person that likes to just stroll through the streets and people watch and absorb the sights and the smells and the sounds and stop for coffees or lattes or pastries and wine? That's me, if you can't tell. Or are you super into museums and art and theater? You could just spend all day there and never get bored. Or are you high adventure? You need to bungee jump or climb that mountain. Knowing these things before you go are really going to help with your planning. And not just for yourself, you need to know for everybody that you're traveling with. So you may need to split up at some point if you're very different, or just be patient and incorporate something that everybody loves. We are a family of 4, plus a dog sometimes. So we have to take breaks. We have to stop at parks and beaches for the girls. Fletcher, our dog, we have to stop for and make sure he gets the breaks that he needs. So yeah, it just is going to go a lot better, and everybody's going to enjoy the trip a lot more if you take this into account. All right, tip number 7, money and phones. I am sad to say I don't have a foolproof method for this. If you absolutely must make calls and it's super vital, I would go through your local carrier. It's going to be more expensive, but at least if you have problems, there's a helpline you can call and they can walk you through it. If you want to be a little more adventurous, save a little money, and it's not as vital, you can try the SIM card option when you arrive. In South Africa, we did this, and we found the phone store in the airport when we arrived, and it was super easy. They had like a chart with all these different plans. You just picked one. They charged us. The lady put our the new SIM card in, took our old one out. Just be sure you don't lose your old card, and it worked like a charm. So I told everybody in Amsterdam when we were going, no, don't get the plan, save money, do the SIM card. Well, there it was not so easy. There wasn't a phone store, and they were just lined up like gift cards. You picked your card and tried to follow the directions, and it worked for some of us. It didn't for others. It was super frustrating. So that one is kind of hit or miss. And then I've also heard that you can buy a phone if you just want to make local calls when you arrive, but I haven't even tried that one out. So good luck with that, but do think about it and know what you're going to do before you go. And then money. Now, we all know, I think, that we need to call our bank and our credit card companies before we leave so they don't freeze our accounts. Tell them when we're traveling and to where. I still forget to do this sometimes in the States, and it's super frustrating because then I'm usually in a public place. They need all this personal information that I can't give. So remember to do that before you go. And then once you do, if you're traveling international, you're going to need to figure out how you're getting the local currency. Typically, we just swing by an ATM and put our bank card in, and it will spit out euros or pounds or South African rand instead of US dollars. And this is the most affordable way and the easiest way to do this. However, I know a few years ago in India, there were problems with this, so double check your destination and make sure that's an option before you go. If not, you're going to need to call your bank and have them order the money, the currency, or stop by an exchange booth when you arrive. And both of those options are going to cost you a little bit more money because of the fee. All right, tip number 8. If you are traveling internationally, take some time and learn a couple key phrases in their language. Just please, thank you, sorry, where's the bathroom? All good things to know. If you are like me, this is going to be a little harder. I'm introverted. I really don't like putting myself out there to sound like a fool, which I'm sure I do a lot of the time, but it's always worth it. I'm always glad I tried. The local culture appreciates it, that you're not just assuming that they'll speak your language in their country. And you learn new things. In Amsterdam, we would say dankjewel, that's thank you, and it always respond with alsjeblieft, so, which I'm assuming is you're welcome. Now we know another word. So just branch out and learn a few phrases and challenge yourself to use those when you go. All right, moving on. Tip number 9. When you arrive at your accommodation, take a moment to grab a business card or write down the address and phone number of where you're staying. Now, I know you're thinking, Janet, that's really old-fashioned. I have a phone and it has all of that information on it. But I submit to you, what if your phone is lost? What if it dies? What if it's stolen? Or what if you can't access your data? Just take a few seconds to write this down on the rare chance that you might need it. And if you are traveling with children, make sure they have a copy too, just in case they get separated. It's also really handy to hand to Uber drivers or taxi drivers or tuk-tuks or whatever it is you're taking at your destination. All right, tip number 10, woohoo, you made it. Watch some YouTube videos or other touristy videos before you go about your destination. This is going to help you with your planning, get a feel for what to expect. And I really like Rick Steves. He does a lot of history and local culture and some food. If you are a foodie, you're probably going to want to watch Bizarre Foods, Delicious Destinations by Andrew Zimmern. We did this when we went to California, my daughter and I, and we wrote down everywhere he went and made it kind of like a scavenger hunt thing to go to each place and try everything he tried, which was a lot of fun. I also put on my blog a couple other YouTubers that you may or may not enjoy depending on your interests, so check that out. All right, you made it. We're done with 10, and because you stuck with me, I have one bonus one for you. Now, you know probably that I work for the airlines. So I'm going to say, if you are flying, please, please, please do not use black luggage. It blends in, there's thousands of them. If for some reason you need us to pull your bag and you say, oh, it's a black roller bag about this big, this tall, our eyes roll to the back of our heads, literally. We can't find that. Also, we've had to call customers for taking somebody else's black bag because they thought it was theirs. Now, if you already do have black luggage and you're thinking, I'm not spending $100 on a new suitcase, Janet, I can appreciate that. I'm a budget girl. However, put something on there to make it stand out. I don't care if it's a neon pom-pom, a big strap, rainbow strap, I've seen those come through, or if it's a giant photo of yourself. Whatever you do, find some way to make sure nobody else takes your bag, and that if you need us to find it, we can do so expediently for you. And also, if you are traveling with a backpack, and I've seen this in Europe, please, please, please don't wear it on your front. It's a backpack. And I'm not a criminal, but I kind of want to pick on those people because it's such an easy paranoid target. If you're really concerned about it, get a teeny tiny padlock and just put it on there with the 2 zippers and be discreet. The goal here is to blend in, not stand out as a tourist. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for joining me today, guys. Until next time, bye. If you found anything in this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up below. Feel free to leave any comments with additional tips, questions, or ideas for future videos. And as always, I would be honored if you joined my wanderings by clicking the subscribe link below to follow this channel.